What's up, everybody? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm, and this is Monday's edition of Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. Those just joining us for the first time, here's what we do. We look at all the games from yesterday, we get you the important information that you need, and we get you out of here. Simple as that. We're looking at usage, especially early in the season, because that's more important right now than chasing targets, chasing touchdowns. I know targets are the end goal, but we want to look at the snaps, we want to look at the routes, we want to look at who's playing in goal line. We want to look at who's playing 2 minute drill, everything we can to kind of put us on the right path, right? And we'll tell you who's relevant, who's not, who to pick up, who to add as best we can as we go through it. We're trying to do this a little faster than we did last year. We take like an hour. That's too much time. That's too much time for you guys. We're trying to do it like 20 minutes or so. So let's get into it. First game here. Let's look at the Raiders, Ravens. I'll tell you what, Devontae Adams is locked in, plays, he ran 42 of 43 routes, got a bunch of targets. He's in your lineup wherever you have him. Jacoby Myers also playing a big snap share, but he's kind of on the back burner here because Brock Bowers is earning more targets, right? We want guys that are top two targets on their team. Very rare for teams to have three guys all get 100 targets. And every wide receiver, too, last year, besides Debo Samuel, got 100 targets. And Debo Samuel is kind of the exception because he had 5 rushing touchdowns. We want those targets. It starts with snaps, it starts with usage. Here's the thing with Brock Bowers, his usage could actually get better, right? He plays a lot of wide receiver snaps, but looking at the numbers here, he only played 43 or 63 snaps, ran 28 of 43 routes. That number could come up if he continues to prove to be a key cog in this offense. He could be even better than he was this week, believe it or not. With the running backs, the split was Zamir White was getting more of the carries and the early down work. Alexander Madison was playing more of the pass down work. A lot of people thought, well, when they play the Ravens, Madison's going to play more because he'll be playing from behind. But what happened? Gardner Minshew looked good once again. Gardner Minshew now second in the league in pass yards and second in the league in completion percentage through 2 weeks. I know it's only 2 weeks, but he looks all right. So uh, Alexander Madison ended up on the back burner. Zamir White played 40 snaps to 14 for Madison. So very difficult to trust a guy like Madison. On the Ravens side, you had Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman as the two wide receivers, right? They played the vast majority of the game. Flowers ran 37 of 37 routes. Bateman ran 35 of 37. And then after that, they used a lot of two tight ends, just as we expected. Although, of course, Mark Andrews played a lot more than Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews, 41 snaps out of 65, 28 routes to only 18 for Likely. He got more targets. I mean, Andrews is still the preferred guy. And I think we're kind of seeing that he probably was just a little bit rusty after the car accident. So, Likely is he's the thing is they love Flowers so much that Likely probably is the third target there. So he could even potentially sneak in as a back end tight end one. But this whole idea that maybe he would be the top two target and Mark Andrews would just go bye bye doesn't really seem to be the case. Again, with this team, Derrick Henry's the early down back. Justice Hill plays a lot of the pass down work. So when that game script gets flipped, you see what we saw yesterday. Justice Hill, 35 snaps, Derrick Henry, 30. Now, of course, Henry got 18 carries and Justice only got 4, but Justice Hill played 20, ran 20 routes, only 9 for Derrick Henry. Shout out to our friends over at Pro Football Focus who provide a lot of these numbers. So that's the situation there. And again, the thing about Justice Hill is there's probably not going to be all that many games where we sit back and we say, oh, the Ravens are going to get crushed today. So Justice Hill is going to have a lot of opportunity. It's very difficult to predict game script. If we were that good at predicting how these games would go, we wouldn't even play fantasy football. We would just crush Vegas. We would just pick the winners every time, right? That's what makes fantasy football so fun, makes gambling so hard, right? Any given Sunday. So next game here, let's look at the Chargers and the Panthers. On the Chargers side, Josh Palmer banged up. Quentin Johnson came out and was the every down player. He led the team in routes run 19 to 22. They all still rotated a little bit, but it was pretty clearly Quentin Johnston and Lad McConkey and Josh Palmer as the top guys. I know Simi Fehoko and Darius Davis played a little bit, but those are the top dogs. Once again, Hayden Hurst ran 16 routes, which was second only to Quentin Johnston. It was more than Will Disley. He's clearly the preferred pass catching tight end. He's still a deeper stash for us. He hasn't really emerged yet and taken full advantage of that role, but I'm still interested. With the running game, 33 snaps for Gus Edwards, 32 for J.K. Dobbins. Gus got a little more run work slightly, still kind of right down the middle. Dobbins got a little more pass work. Dobbins is still our preferred play because of how explosive he is and fun he is. And he actually got a little more goal line work. So it's not like they just view Gus as the goal line back. They just like rotating and splitting these guys. We'll go with the more explosive guy. if you're still in a spot, a jam for hero or zero RB, I mean, Gus Edwards got 18 carries too. And if there's 20 available, it's probably still going to be like 10 and 10 or 9 and 11. So both these guys are playing some. It's just Dobbins is the guy you start because he just has looked better, right? On the Panthers side, it was Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, full snap shares. Mingo and Xavier Leggett split a bit. Uh, and again, with Mingo and Leggett, they only ran 16 and 15 routes compared to 27, 26 for Deontay Johnson. So really can't trust either of those guys. They're just stashes at this stage. Obviously, in Dynasty, you give the rookie the up, and even in redraft, like I always give those guys a little bit of a higher upside because they're the unknown versus the guy they drafted, and then they felt the need to trade for and draft another guy. So something to keep in mind. Jatavian Sanders took a step back. Tommy Tremble returned, and they kind of split snaps here. 24 for Tremble, 22 for Sanders. If the team is going to be bad, and this goes for the running backs too, where Chuba Hubbard played 28 snaps, Miles Sanders played 20. I know it was better for Chuba. Chuba played more of the early game, and Sanders kind of came in for 2 minute drill. But if this team's going to be bad, we cannot start a running back or tight end that is splitting. We need them to play virtually the entire game. I need them to be Devin Singletary on the Giants, like playing virtually the entire game for me to trust these guys at all. So right now, just don't trust them. Neither of them. If I had to start anybody from this team, it would probably still have to be Deontay Johnson. But again, it's really ugly. We need Bryce Young to do something. When Bryce Young starts doing something, we can start talking about rostering these guys and using them on teams where we think we can actually win our fantasy. And again, you can't quite rule them out just yet, but it didn't look good last year. It doesn't look good early this year. And they gave him the weapons. They upgraded the line. We haven't seen Jonathan Brooks yet, but I'm not sure how much more you can do. Jonathan Brooks, if you can put him in an IR spot, is the one guy I'm really interested in still having. But even now all of a sudden it's like, man, I stashed this guy so I could do what? Start him on the worst team in the NFL? Kind of gross. Next team here, let's look at the Saints and Cowboys here. We love what we're seeing from the Saints. This is what we're talking about with an offense that's working exactly the way we had hoped and kind of wrote up. So what we wrote up this offseason for both Kamara and Rashid, I wrote individual articles on both these players, basically saying that Clint Kubiak bringing in this offense that worked with the 49ers. Uh, Mike McDaniel brought the same thing over to the Dolphins. I know the Texans started doing it last year, but they ditched the fullback this year because they have three wide receivers. But basically, what you do is you have an elite left tackle, you have a fullback that's playing 30, 40, 50% of the snaps at times. And then you have two wide receivers that are at the top that are going in motion, doing all sorts of creative stuff. And then you run the ball well and you get those guys going in motion and get them in space, and good things happen. And that's what's been happening so far. You see highly consolidated snaps for Shaheed and Olave, and the other guys are hardly even playing. So these guys, 42 and 39 snaps for Rashid and Olave. Next closest guy is Mason Tipton with 15 because the fullback, Adam Prentice, is playing 26. And Taysom Hill plays some fullback, and it's staying consolidated at the top. And again, this team only dropped back 18 times, and Shaheed only on 17 routes, Olave on 16, still looked good for fantasy. Just wait till this team gets a tougher matchup and they really have to chuck. These guys are going to have some blow up games, man. I'm really excited about this team. Obviously, Alvin, I got a lot of heat for my tweet where I said Alvin Kamara, the upside for him isn't an RB1. The upside is being the RB1 in fantasy. I know 2 weeks is early, but right now he is the RB1, and people are looking around and realizing that that is his upside. I'm not saying that he is the RB1 and you have to move him up in your rankings and trade everything for him, but I think everyone can realize now that being the best running back in football is within the range of outcomes for a guy that has been the best running back in football before and was a top three running back in points per game last year. Like, I don't know why everyone was so upset about such a simple premise. I don't know. People just like to get upset in the offseason. Now that it's a real season, we sit back and we're like, oh, yeah, Alvin Kamara, fun to watch. I'm loving it. 4 touchdowns this week. Let's go. Dallas Cowboys, we don't need to talk much about CeeDee Lamb. He's the top dog, 7 targets. You're always going to start him no matter what, right? The question is, what happens next? Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks both played huge snap shares. 60 for Tolbert, 57 for Brandon Cooks. Tolbert got the targets this week, but I still like the usage for Cooks. I still think he's probably the guy I would prefer. But again, we'll have to see how it continues to shake out. Tolbert did look good. He made at least one really nice catch. So we'll have to see there. Then what they did with Jake Ferguson now is they honestly ran a lot more four wide receiver sets. Like Luke Schoonmaker led the tight ends and snaps with only 28. Brevin Spanford played 22. You add that up, that's only 50 snaps for a team that played 70. So they had at least 20 snaps, at least 20, because there were probably a few. I got to dig deeper in those numbers, but there were at least 20 snaps where there wasn't a tight end on the field at all. I mean, that's simple math right there. That's how I'm not really using any of these tight ends. I don't care that Luke Schoonmaker got 6 targets. If next week he comes out, like throw him on your bench as a stash if you really are hurting bad. But if next week he comes out and plays the whole game, then we'll move him up. But not really super interested. Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott split 30 snaps and 28 snaps. I mean, right down the middle, 16 routes apiece, 7 carries, 6 carries. Deuce Vaughn played a little bit too, though. But again, at least Rico Dowdle and to me, Rico and Zeke are just a coin flip. They really are, in my opinion. So, I guess Rico technically got the start, but I mean, it's very difficult to sit back and be super excited about either or super necessarily down on either. If you have no one else, like it's better to start a guy playing half the game than some of these guys that we know are just backups or are going to play like 20% of snaps. So that's how I look at it. Lions, Buccaneers, man, we told you the Bucks could knock off the Lions, and they did. So uh, we love to say "I told you so," so we will. But I didn't necessarily think they were definitely going to win. But I thought 6.5 was high, and I said on the Sirius XM show with Howard Bender, I was like, "Look, you've been going to make me pick one underdog to win. I'm picking the Bucks in the lightning hot Baker Mayfield QB1 in fantasy football." So on the Lions side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 18 targets. You know what? That's the kind of guy he is. Obviously, you weren't just going to fade him after 1 week. That's silly. That's not how we play. He was out there 79 of 85 snaps. Jameson Williams, despite the ankle, 78 of 85 snaps and 11 targets. So he's going up. Somebody has to come down. As we say, very rare to have three guys all get 100 targets. Sam Laporta, only 2 targets here. He ran 48 routes, which is awesome, but they just had a plan for him. So I'm not saying Laporta is like in this tight end atmosphere with what you invested in Laporta, you still got to start him until we say different. And this isn't enough to say different, but just know that it's not just two guys anymore. It's ARSB, JMO, Laporta, and two running backs that can both catch the football. Jameer Gibbs, again, the game script favored Gibbs because they were losing, so he played 53 snaps to 30 for Monty. When they're winning, Monty will play more. So just we know what that split is. This is nothing different. This isn't Jameer Gibbs taking over. It's the Lions were losing. We didn't expect them to lose. On the Buccaneers side, gotta love what you're seeing from Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. As expected, Chris Godwin went off. This is a perfect situation for him. We had him high in the rankings. We told everybody to start him. Not much more we can do on that one. Jalen McMillan continues to be a good stash, in my opinion. He's clearly surpassed Trey Palmer right from the rip. All three Godwin, McMillan, Evans played 38 snaps. It's just they have two better wide receivers. But if one guy goes down, now he's the second best pass catcher on the team because K. Dotton doesn't really do a whole lot. Like plays a lot of snaps. Yards per route run last year was 0.8. This year it's even lower. As crazy as that is. For the running backs, Rashad White, 34 snaps to 17 for Bucky Irving, but Bucky still got 7 carries and White got 10. White played more pass work, which is kind of interesting considering that Bucky was the pass down back, the best one coming out of college here. So Bucky Irving continues to be one of the better stashes just to see if they do go full hot hand on us here and go in his direction. Green Bay Packers here, they didn't change much with the snap counts with Malik Willis, to be honest. I mean, they did use a little more Dontavian Wicks. You see that a lot with if the backup quarterback is working with one guy a lot and have things on the same page, that guy plays a little more, but it's still Romeo Dubs leading. Christian Watson ran only 11 routes. Wicks ran 8. So Watson definitely impossible to start him. And then Jaden Reed, he got a couple manufactured touches, but they didn't throw a lot. I think their plan is we'll just run it until Jordan Love gets back. So stash all those guys until Love gets back. But for now, it's really Josh Jacobs that we're starting. 47 snaps, only 13 for Emmanuel Wilson, 10 for Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd just got back, so he's got to work his way up, but not much there as of now. Alec Pierce continues to be the guy opposite Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman is the guy you start. Alec Pierce is kind of interesting for now. Josh Downs, we're still stashing. Adonai Mitchell, we need these rookies to kind of pop when they have the opportunity. His opportunity could start to decrease with Josh Downs coming back, so not really super in love with him. Anthony Richardson, you start him wherever you have. Jonathan Taylor, you start him wherever you have him. Trey Sermon actually, oddly, did play 12. He ran 12 routes to only 11 for Taylor. So, um, not the split that we like to see there. And then there's not really a tight end with the Colts are going to be interested in. With the Browns and the Jaguars here, Amari Cooper played the whole game. Jerry Judy played 57 snaps. Elijah Moore played 52. Difficult guessing game there. I mean, with no tight end really. Jordan Akins only played 35 snaps, only ran 20 routes. He's no David Njoku. So maybe you do have those guys getting more snaps, but we need to see Jerry Judy or Elijah Moore separate themselves for the other one. Otherwise, it's just going to be too annoying of a guessing game there. At running back, Jerome Ford started, but Donta Foreman got 14 carries to 7 for him. Ford played more pass downs. Pierre Strong also played 10 snaps, 9 of which were pass downs. So they're going with a rotation there. I'm just hoping Nick Chubb comes back and takes over the entire job, and then we don't have to think about it anymore. For now, if you're going to start somebody, though, I think I'd still start Jerome Ford. Jacksonville, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk. Those are the three guys there. Again, Kirk just hasn't been as effective running that slot, even without Evan Engram there. That's the biggest and scariest part is that his role was bigger with no Evan Engram, but he didn't really do much. Where when Evan Engram plays, they kind of split a little bit. That's scary. Brenton Strange played 41 snaps, 26 routes, 7 targets. Hey, you know what? If Evan Ingram's out, you need a spot start, and it's really grim. Maybe go with him, but he is more of a blocking tight end, so we don't really think he's going to pop too much. Beyond, I mean, we're not going to predict him to get more targets than guys like Brian Thomas every week, so it's just difficult for us to go with a guy like that. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby got hurt on a special teams play, so he didn't play any offense at all. So Travis Etienne, 43 snaps. Dearness Johnson took up that Tank Bigsby job and played 17. But Travis Etienne, as long as Tank Bigsby's out, like he has no real threat to his job, to his snaps. Uh, we got to go a little faster here. Vikings, 49ers. Justin Jefferson left briefly with a leg contusion. So Jalen Naylor played more. It's Jefferson and Naylor whenever Addison's out. It's Jefferson and Addison whenever he's playing. And then until TJ Hawkinson comes back, we're not interested in any tight ends. I'm sorry. Aaron Jones played more snaps, but Ty Chandler got more carries. That's what they want. Aaron Jones is the pass down back. Chandler is the run down back. Aaron Jones still more interesting though, because if he's going to get all the pass work and half the run work, that's so much better than just some run work, right? So it's still Aaron Jones over Ty Chandler. 49ers, again, Jordan Mason, top 5 running back whenever CMC's out. So lock him in. Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel are the guys, and then George Kittle. I mean, it's like we don't need to explain more than that with this team. Seahawks at Patriots here. We had DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, 3 wide receivers playing the whole game. Noah Fant also playing a bigger snap share. He's like a whatever DFS dart throw spot start because we know the other guys are going to get more targets. It was all DK and JSN this week. Lockett's been a little banged up, but hey, maybe the tides have turned. It will be those guys moving forward, but they all played a ton. Zach Charbonnet played 67 of 70 snaps. Kenneth Walker's out, Charbonnet's in. That's the deal. So, if you started Charbonnet this week and Walker's out again, start him again. That's what I'm doing where I have him. When Walker's back, I'll start Walker. Simple as that. For the Patriots, the routes run leaders, once again, Hunter Henry. We said this last week, and we told you to add him. Hunter Henry, 57 snaps and 28 routes, led this team again. Next was Demario Douglas with 23 routes. Jalen Polk with 22. We like Hunter Henry. We already said we love. Jalen Polk will also stash. Everybody else just not really playing enough, in our opinion. Ramondre Stevenson is the guy. Played 49 snaps to 16 for Antonio Gibson. Gibson may be a spot start or wherever you want, but Ramondre is still a superstar stud, and you got to get him in wherever you can. Jets here. Garrett Wilson led. Alan Lazard was the second leading wide receiver, but again, 26 routes, 24 for Mike Williams. So Xavier Gibson already basically was phased out for Mike Williams to play, but Lazard kept playing. So again, Lazard may be a dart throw, a streamer for now, but I think Mike Williams just keeps creeping in there. Tyler Conklin, just not a guy we're usually interested in, but again, he was out there, 29 routes out of 33 possible, just not super interesting for fantasy football, in my opinion. I know people have been trying to figure out whether Aaron Rodgers can get him the ball. I just don't believe in it. Brees Hall, awesome. Braylon Allen, played some, did well with what he did, but Brees Hall got more carries. Brees Hall ran more routes, double in each category. Don't worry about Brees Hall. He's fine. On the Titan side, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd played the whole game until, again, we said this last week. We're going to keep saying it. Until DeAndre Hopkins is healthy enough to play an entire game, we don't trust him. Simple as that. Chigakonkwo only ran 17 of 35 routes. He rotated with Josh Wiley. No interest there. Tony Pollard played more than Tajay Spears in all phases, and then Tajay Spears left with an injury. So Tony Pollard was already a startable player. Now it's kind of wheels up for him until Tajay Spears gets back. Giants here, Malik Neighbors, 17 targets. He's that dude. Darius Slayton and Wandale Robinson played alongside him, but not nearly as much and didn't nearly get as many targets. Wandale Robinson's still the more interesting one for me for fantasy football, but he's still only a part-time player. Theo Johnson took a step back here, 18 routes of 32 possible. They haven't pass blocking on too many plays. It's the killer of otherwise healthy tight ends. Devin Singletary played a ton, the most work in all phases. Tyrone Tracy did get some goal line work per Nathan Yankee over at PFF, so we'll keep an eye on that, but it's still Singletary for now. With the Commanders, Terry McLaurin, the top dog, Diami Brown and Luke McCaffrey, the next two, but Luke McCaffrey didn't get a target here. Zach Ertz, again, if you need somebody, 32 of 38 routes, he's the next guy. If he goes down, Ben Sennett probably takes over that pass catching job, but Sennett doesn't even play right now. Jaden Daniels is awesome. Brian Robinson played more than Austin Eckler in a positive game script, but we know the deal. They like Eckler on pass downs in most cases, but 43 snaps to 31 for Eckler. Last week it was split down the middle, so I don't know. Hard to trust either guy on one of the worst teams in the league. Arizona Cardinals and the Rams. The Cardinals pulled this one out. Marvin Harrison Jr. showed why you drafted him as early as you did. 2 touchdowns there. Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch just kind of dart throws because it's Harrison and McBride, right? It's hard to trust anybody else. Elijah Higgins, converted wide receiver, scored a touchdown there. If anything happens to Trey McBride, Elijah Higgins is a priority ad for us. Could be this year's, if anything happens, knock on wood, could be this year's Isaiah Likely or Trey McBride, right? That's the deal. We want to look for pass catching guys coming up behind other good pass catchers. James Conner was the dude. He is awesome. Trey Benson played a little more. So Trey Benson, solid handcuff, if you ask me. Rams this week, Demarcus Robinson led the show. If Cooper Kupp is out, Demarcus Robinson is the guy. Cooper Kupp did leave with an injury, so we're prioritizing Demarcus Robinson. We'll see some more Jordan Whittington, but it's Robinson and Tyler Johnson if Kupp's out until Nakua gets back. So keep an eye on that. Colby Parkinson played. He led, but only 24 of 32 routes. I mean, at least he's running the routes. So, again, just like a plug in if you have nothing. But we've been working on getting guys like Hunter Henry, and these are the guys that we actually like and trust. Kyron Williams played the bulk of the work. Blake Corum was just a handcuff, though. He did get 8 carries. Every time Blake Corum was in the game, he got a carry. So I don't know. Defenses take note. Here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers, Denver Broncos. We said this one would be boring. It was. George Pickens had a bad matchup, but it's George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth for pass catchers for the Steelers that we care about. Not worried about anybody else. Jalen Warren in a bad game script for the Steelers played more than that, or same number of snaps as Najee Harris, but they did more passing, so a little more Jalen Warren. And on the Broncos side, Cortland Sutton leads the show. Josh Reynolds probably the next best wide receiver. 8 targets for Dulcich, had a couple bad drops, but we still like to see the targets. So the dream is still alive. We'll see what Devon Vele looks like. That with Devon Vele out, Dulcich should have really popped, and he didn't. So hard to say there. Javonte Williams, 40 snaps. Next highest was Jaleel McLaughlin with 19. Javonte Williams is the leader in all phases over there. Bengals Chiefs here. We've got Rashee Rice, 54 snaps, 27 routes run out of 32 possible, led the team in targets, and he's great. And we're happy to have him. Travis Kelce, he actually ran more routes than Rashee Rice, 29 to 32. You start Kelce where you have him. End of story, right? The big story here, Isaiah Pacheco got hurt. Carson Steele operated on early downs. Samaje Perine on pass downs. That'll probably be the case until Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. He's eligible to return after week 4. So I don't know if I'm really going crazy to add Carson Steele. He's super slow. Or Samaje Perine, to be honest, but probably Perine. On the Bengals side, Jamar Chase led in snaps and routes and everything. Andre Yoshivas still looking pretty good. He was second. So Chase ran 40 of 41 routes. Yoshivas 34 of 41, so not quite T. Higgins, but until T. Higgins gets back, we'll throw him in for a spot start. Mike Gesicki got 9 targets. People are going to be fired up to add him, but he played half the game. 30 of 64 snaps, 21 of 41 routes. Don't trust that personally. Zach Moss dominated 51 snaps to 13 for Chase Brown. Chase Brown is droppable. Again, people are going crazy over Chase Brown and Tajay Spears. Sometimes drafting them ahead of the starting running back. This whole idea of like draft whoever's cheaper in the backfield doesn't work if you're overspending for the guy that is the backup. So I don't know. Should have listened to Howard Bender on that, everybody. The Bears, Texans here. Nico Collins led the team in snaps and targets and everything. Stephon Diggs was next. Tank Dell came out for some two wide receiver sets, but a lot of those were run plays. We actually ran the same number of routes as Diggs. Nico Collins ran 36 and led the team. Dalton Schultz, 29 routes of a possible 39. He's been banged up. So that's what they did. They just took it easy with him. Joe Mixon got banged up, left this game briefly. And if he's out or misses time, it'd be Cam Akers on rundowns and Dare Agumbawale on pass downs, unless Damian Pierce returns, at which point it would probably be Damian Pierce over Cam Akers. Chicago Bears, DJ Moore led. Keenan Allen was out. With him out, Rome Odunze was the wide receiver 2, and DeAndre Carter was pretty clearly the wide receiver 3, played a pretty big snap share. Nothing we can really trust in fantasy. They used more 2 tight end sets, so we saw more Cole Kmet. But again, Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett are going to rotate, so don't care. DeAndre Swift led in all phases, so if you're into that kind of guy, that would be the kind of guy for you. That's it. We're getting you out of here. Thank you guys, everybody. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back every week, hit you with the info on this show. All right.